Lesson 5. Limitations with adding tones. So last lesson, I mentioned that we can combine a consonant, vowel, and any of the 6 tones to make a word. This is true only if the vang is a single vowel. If the vang is more than just a vowel, like these, then there can be some limitations to the tones you can add. And that's what we'll be discussing in this video. Once again, basic understanding of tiếng Việt is highly useful but not necessary. I assume you know your consonants, phụ âm, vowels, nguyên âm, tonal marks, dấu, and the process of sounding out words, cách đánh vần. Please watch the previous lessons if you don't. In this video and at this stage, I'm not expecting you to be able to fully read any of the Vietnamese you'll see on screen. It's only there for demonstration purposes. Okay, so with that said, chúng ta bắt đầu. First of all, we need to talk about the concept of a resting tone. The resting tone is the tone of a vang in its natural state when it has no dấu. A vang either has a flat resting tone, like in I, im, or it has an upwards resting tone, like in ác, ép, ít. I hope you can appreciate that the upwards resting tone is the same sound as your suck. But how do you know which one is which? The rule is that a vang must have an upwards resting tone if it ends with a go, jo, po, or do. Otherwise, everything else has a flat resting tone. Let's go through some more examples of each. Vang with upward resting tone. Ác, ất, ép, ik, op, ức. Notice the ending letters. Vang with flat resting tone. An, an, in, oi, ưa. Okay, so the reason I've been spending so much time on resting tones is because this is what determines which tones can be combined. Those vang with a flat resting tone can be combined with any of the 6 tones, and those with an upwards resting tone can only be combined with your suck or your nang. So for example, ép, your suck, phép, your nang, đẹp. One thing to note is that even though by itself this is ép, when you add the pho, this is not phép. When written as a word, it cannot be without a your suck or your nang. In this case, it's your suck. But when written by itself as a sound, we don't need to add your suck because it's implied. You can think about it as having an invisible yo suck. And for the other side, an, dấu ngang hay là không dấu, đang, dấu sắc, ráng, dấu huyền, làng, dấu hỏi, đảng, dấu ngã, hãng, dấu nặng, hạng. So I hope that's making some sense so far. Now the next part is obvious, but bear with me. We need to differentiate between a sound and a word. You can combine things together to make many sounds, but they may not have meaning. That is, they're not words. For example, ơi. There are a lot of possible sounds, but you can only make a few words using dấu hỏi, like gửi or chửi. So later in the course, when we start going through each vang, I'll be doing something similar where I try and provide an example with each possible dấu. But I'm going to make a disclaimer that I won't always be able to do this with each dấu, either because no words exist, or I'm unable to find a word due to my limited vocabulary. Remember that tiếng Việt is a phonetic language, so in theory you can read everything, but understand nothing. Learning to read is the easier part. Before I wrap it up, you may have noticed that I haven't been sounding things out like I taught in last lesson. That was deliberate in order to keep this video short. Once we get into it, I'll be sounding things out fully, and you'll see that it'll be a lot easier to grasp. That concludes the lesson. Please share it if you found this video helpful. Next video, we'll talk about the different Vietnamese accents in a 2-part series. See you then!